Alright, this looks like a pretty good starter house. Now let's see what the HRA thinks. Well, okay. Ah, the good old Happy Room Academy, always so passive-aggressive in their scoring letters. For the unfamiliar, the Happy Room Academy is an association that scores your player house interior based on the type of furniture you own and their layout in your home. In later games, the Happy Room Academy was rebranded to the Happy Home Academy and even got a few spin-offs in the form of Happy Home Designer and the New Horizons DLC Happy Home Paradise. But this little association got its origins in the original GameCube game under the name Happy Room Academy, or HRA for short. Though I'm not exactly sure what academy these guys are going to, since a perfect home in their eyes constitutes filling your entire house with random items to the point where you can't even walk inside anymore. Like, seriously? This is my highest scoring house? Regardless, the scoring system that the HRA uses is still rather interesting, and since there's no real hard cap, it's very intriguing to see how high players can realistically push this score. So, let's dive into how HRA scoring works and how we can overachieve the Academy's perfect house. The HRA first becomes available after you complete your opening chores. The next time you enter Nook's shop, he'll approach you about the Academy and explain how they score your house interior. From here, if you change anything about your house interior on a certain day, then the next day you will receive a fresh letter from the HRA scoring your efforts. Before knowledge of the game's mechanics was super widespread, players tried to figure out how this scoring system worked on their own. A few dedicated players experimented with a lot of different layouts, which fueled a bit of competition online to see who can get the highest score. One of these players is Brian MP16, who I've mentioned before as one of the legends of the original Animal Crossing. Brian actually has a great video documenting the history of these HRA world records, and he himself currently holds the world record for the highest HRA score. But more on that later. This video will not touch on this history, but will rather explain how this scoring is actually calculated and how we can abuse some various tactics to overachieve what is normally possible. So first, in the interest of talking about the maximum possible scores, I'll be discussing this video in the context of a fully upgraded player house. This means we have the max amount of space possible to arrange furniture and score points. Notably, the basement does not count for HRA scoring, so we'll only be focusing on the main floor and the upstairs. Now, scoring works based on a point system, and every item in the game is given an HRA score value based on what type of item it is. There are quite a lot of item categories for the HRA score, but to give you an example, things like clothes and fish are only worth 3 points each, while things like gyroids are worth 828 points. Fun fact, gyroids are actually worth 828 points since 828 translates to hachi ni hachi in Japanese, and these leading syllables combine to spell out haniwa, which are the terracotta clay figures that gyroids are based on. In a similar manner, NES games are worth 1,983 points as a reference to the year 1983, when the Famicom was first released in Japan. In fact, these NES items are actually the highest scoring individual items in the game. See, most furniture you can get from Tom Nook's is only worth a measly 51 points, so utilizing special items like the NES items is crucial to getting a high HRA score. Other high-scoring items include rewards from Tortimer, which are worth 1,111 points, and items from the Jingle series, which are worth 1,224 points, possibly as a reference to Christmas Eve. Anyways, if you're interested in the full list of how many points each item is worth, Nookopedia has a nice list here. Now, given this point system, you may think that the most optimal way to get the highest score is just to fill your entire house with the highest scoring items. Or, in other words, fill your house with tables with NES games on top. But it's not that simple, and there are actually some more rules to HRA scoring that makes this way more complex. First, there are a total of 47 lucky items in Animal Crossing, and placing one of these lucky items in your house grants a bonus 777 points on top of their base score. So for example, the NES game Ice Climber is worth a base 1,983 points, but it is also a lucky item, so it's effectively worth 2,760 points. On top of this, some items in the game are grouped into special series, sets, or themes, which actually give bonus points if used together on the main floor. For example, the Froggy set in the original Animal Crossing only consists of the Froggy chair and the lily pad table. And since this is a set of items, the HRA bonus score is plus 3,000 points per item in the set, or a grand total of plus 6,000 points. However, more substantial groupings are known as series and consist of 10 items plus a matching rug and wallpaper. Including all of these items and the rug and wallpaper on the main floor of your house will grant a nice 58,000 point bonus. And finally, the HRA can actually take away points if you don't follow other rules. If you have certain items facing the wall incorrectly, then you get a minus 800 point deduction per item. And if you have a completed theme of items in your house, then placing an item from any other theme will actually deduct minus 4,000 points per item outside of your original theme. Pretty harsh. It's worth noting that the HRA rewards you with the house model and the manor model at 70,000 and 100,000 points respectively. And while there are no more rewards after this, the counter still goes up beyond this, and when there's large numbers to be attained, it's only natural for players to want to see how high they can push it. But as you probably guessed when I was explaining the rules, this system is a bit complex. Not only are there all these different rules, bonuses, and deductions, but you also have to account for the fact that the main floor has an item cap of 64 items and the upstairs has an item cap of 48 items. This means you normally cannot place any more items than those, so you have to be really careful in your item selection. Further, you also have to account for the fact that you can place items on tables and that some items take up more space than others. So you can quickly see how this can spiral into a nightmarish calculation. Nevertheless, early game players were up to this task, and as mentioned before, Brian has since improved on a lot of old HRA records, and these days is practically carrying the HRA score on his lonesome. Through extremely careful calculations and placement, Brian achieved a whopping 407,812 points with this house layout, which features the Harvest series, some various smaller sets to net the 3,000 bonus points, and a few lucky NES items. Notably, this score is over 4 times the amount of what the HRA stops rewarding at, so I suppose this already qualifies as overachieving the HRA score. This is actually an extremely impressive record, and remains as the glitchless world record to this day. I actually tried for quite a bit to improve this record myself, but I eventually gave up, because to be frank, I'm simply weaker and lack the resolve to go through every item set and size to conjure up a better solution, if one even exists. If anyone wants to try and improve this record, I'm sure Brian would welcome the challenge, but again, I'm not even sure if this glitchless world record is even possible to improve. But of course, this whole time I'm stressing that this is a glitchless world record, meaning there are a few interesting glitches we can abuse to push this score even higher. So, how do we go about overachieving the HRA score even more? It turns out, all the way back in 2004, a glitch was discovered that allows players to walk on tables by running and quickly placing items down. While seemingly harmless, this actually opens up a lot of other possibilities. In terms of HRA scoring, it turns out dropping an item onto the table while standing on it and then picking up the table will leave the item floating in the air. This item now effectively acts as if it were a table itself, allowing for more items to be placed on top of it. And as you can see, this allows for higher scoring items to act as tables to put other higher scoring items on top of, already vastly improving our HRA score. Further, the walking on tables glitch can also be used to duplicate items by placing a stereo or storage unit on top of an item acting as a table. If you do this and reload the room, the item will be floating in the air and you can pick it up and reload the room again and again to endlessly cause it to respawn. I mentioned before that the main floor and upstairs have a maximum item limit of 64 and 48 respectively. So what were to happen if you pick up that respawning item, fill the rest of the room to the item limit, and then reload the room? Would the item still spawn and give us a 65th item and break the limit? Well, Brian experimented with this concept and figured out that the item does respawn, but it also seemingly removes a previously existing item as well to keep the game within the item limit. But it turns out that that item that is seemingly removed from your house is not actually removed entirely. Rather, it's just unrendered and invisible to the player. This means that the items are still technically there and actually still count for the HRA score even if they can't be seen or picked up. With this discovery, the item limit was effectively broken, and houses can now be filled with hidden invisible items on top of glitched tables to further increase your score. And for our final trick, there are actually a few ways to get out of bounds in your house, mainly by using the same techniques as the walking on tables glitch. You can actually place furniture out of bounds, and there is quite a lot of space to do so, but furniture placed out of bounds does not count towards the HRA score. However, the original Animal Crossing works by using invisible wall objects with active collision to try and prevent you from going beyond your house's inner walls. Further, when you pay off your debt and upgrade your house at Nooks, the game uses the exact same map as your original house and just expands the size outwards and places new wall objects at further positions to represent the new walls. And it turns out, if we go out of bounds on our original small house and place 2x1 tables on the very edge of where our house will expand to, then we can actually cause the invisible wall objects to spawn on top of the tables. And due to the way objects and tables work, we can actually push the table, which will move the wall object out of bounds since it's on top of the table. This means we can effectively disable wall collision in our house and use the border between inbounds and out of bounds to place larger objects. Remember, the HRA does not count items out of bounds, but so long as it's an item touching inbounds, it will still count towards the HRA score. This means we can place items larger than 1x1 inside of a 1x1 area at the edge of our walls, half inbounds and half out of bounds, thus improving our score even further. But unfortunately, we cannot do this glitch on the upstairs floor since that floor never expands past its original size. So, with the rules of HRA scoring understood, and by combining all of these glitches, Brian achieved a new house layout with a whopping 663,923 points. Over 6 times the max amount that the HRA stops rewarding at. And that is how this system was pushed to its limits and how you can overachieve the Happy Room Academy score. To this day, Brian's 663,923 score is the highest known possible HRA record, and I'm not even sure if it can be improved. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you learned something new, or at least found this video somewhat entertaining. As always, thank you to my Patreon and YouTube members, especially Lunascape, Inferno Wrath, Raccoon, Cynthia, Tyrant Link, Kawa Run, Mentis98, and Silly Marina. Supporters of my Patreon and YouTube memberships are actually helping to fund a pretty substantial project that I'm working on, which will be included in my largest video to date, so their support is extremely appreciated. Of course, simply watching my videos will always be enough for me, so thank you all for watching. Until next time.